Hey everyone, welcome back to the Bimmer Barn. Today we're going to be dyeing the rear seats on my M5 wagon from gray to black using a kit I bought off of Amazon. Now we're doing this because the rest of the interior on my car is black from the M5 swap that we already did on this car, but the rear seats are still gray and I've been dying to convert these to black, pun intended. So let's go ahead and get to work. I'm gonna show you the materials that we have. We're probably gonna remove the seats from the car so that it'll be easier to get a really good coverage on them. And then we'll reinstall them in the car and have a full look at the black interior. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get right to work. So ever since I did the M5 swap with the drivetrain and most of the interior bits, including the door panels, the rear seats have been the standard gray that it came with from factory on this 540i wagon. So it's kind of been a weird setup. Not many people have questioned me about it, but I'm sure that people notice that it's a completely different color than the rest of the car. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna remove the rear seats and we're gonna dye them first because I wanna test the product. And the rear seats, at the end of the day, I could always find them for a black wagon and do the rear swap with all the trunk carpets and such. But today we're just going to be dyeing the leather to test them, and if it comes out good enough, we'll go ahead and do the front seats as well. That way they'll all match. And the front leather, it's cracked up, it's definitely missing some color, but it's not in bad condition. I'd say there's just one area where there's some thread that kind of backed out of the stitching, and we could always get that restitched. But if we can go ahead and save the leather on these seats by re-dyeing them here and using a little bit of filler on, I think, the passenger seat there, then I think we'll save a ton of money versus buying new leather skins and redoing these seats at like a professional shop or something like that. The products that I have to use today are two things actually. One is the leather dyeing kit, and this uses like a jar of what is this, like a balm, and then it has these little sponges that come with it, and you apply this to the leather and it helps dye it. And I've heard some tips about, you know, using these things when they're wet to help get a more even coloring, and then drying it with like a hair dryer. And then you also have a little brush here that comes with the kit for getting those fine little lines in case you don't want to take apart your seats. It also comes with gloves. And then to the side here, we have a leather filler repair kit. So this is for those areas where you have tears or cracks, and it comes with black leather filler and then some white filler that you can mix to get the appropriate shade. I think this will be really good to use on the seats and then just dye over it so it's all the same uniform color. And then you see here it comes with a little mixing cup and then an application spoon and an application brush, and also some patches actually. So if you have a big tear larger than the size of a quarter, then you can go ahead and patch it with some of that fabric and then apply the filler on top and do all that work, and it should look half decent. Actually, I bought both of these products because the Amazon reviews were so good and the pictures speak for themselves when people show you the results. So I think what we're gonna do now is, like I said, let's tear apart the car, get the rear seats out so we can kind of disassemble them and get a really good clean surface to dye, and then we'll start applying the product. All right, so we have all the seats here laid out, nice and pretty, of course. And we're gonna start by cleaning up all the seats because you wanna remove any dirt, grease, anything that's built into the leather that you don't wanna be dyeing black and basically embedding into the leather there. So I'm gonna go ahead and use some super diluted degreaser. This is, I think, Purple Power, just with a lot of water, and then a microfiber to clean off all the dirt. And then we'll start getting the seats ready for dyeing. So now we've got the seats all cleaned up, and as you can see, I started disassembling the rear seat because you see it has the headrests, which can come out pretty easily. But I think that we can also get the carpet off of the back of it, and that's gonna make it really easy to get a sharp line on the leather. And remember, I want to get deep into all of these pieces as much as possible so that when it's reassembled in the car, there's not a lick of gray leather showing. That way it looks 100% OEM. So let's go ahead and try to disassemble the rear seats, and then we'll get into dyeing them. Well, one way or another, I found a way to get those carpet backings off, but I did probably break all the clips around them. Now, it does make a good edge for us to bring all that dye all the way up to, and that way we don't have any chance of it bleeding over to the carpet, so I'm happy about that. And when we reassemble it, you know, worst comes to worst, we can always put a couple self-tapping screws either from the side or from the back, and I don't think you'll notice them, especially if we go black carpet or if we just paint the screws silver. But anyways, we'll tackle that when we get there. We're already here. So as you can see, I've lifted up all the pieces so that they're not on the ground and getting dirty. And I'm gonna wipe them off one more time. We're gonna start with some of the big pieces, and then we'll work into the smaller items, probably on the bench or somewhere where, you know, they're not getting dirty as we dye them. Now, as I said, people on Amazon have been recommending not using these sponges. Some people do use the sponges, but what a lot of people do complain about is this stuff drying too quickly. So what I'm gonna try is using the sponges that came with the kit, and I'm going to wet them as we install the balm and we kind of spread things around. And these things come in small containers because if you leave them open for too long, they can dry up. So it's something to keep in mind, is you don't want to leave it open for too long. So like I said, let's go ahead and finish our cleaning and then get to dyeing. All right, layer number one on the first piece is done. And first impressions are that, you know, it does come out a little bit streaky if you're just laying it on, but then halfway through, I started more using like a padding technique, and that gave it more of like a natural texture like the leather does. Now it still has to dry, we still have to do more coats, so that's not to say that I could have just left it streaky and then done like a final layer, or, you know, I'm not sure what the exact results are going to be at this point, but so far so good. We've got every little nook and cranny really saturated with that black, and I used the brush to go in the middle here, which was really nice. So now we're gonna go ahead and do the other two big pieces, and hopefully by the time we come back to this, it'll be dry enough for us to do a second layer.
Perfect.
So there is number one, all done on all three of these big pieces here. Our first piece that we finished looks really good, actually. I did a really, I took the most time on this one, padding on it to get a good texture. You'll see that there's kind of like a dark ring here because I left the sponge on there. I just took it off a second ago, so it's still a little wet. But we're gonna go ahead and start our third layer now. This big seat here came out good. I kind of rushed it a little bit. I'm, gonna be honest. Got a little bit of Goose's drool here because he touched it a second ago. But yeah, some spots you can see some weird texture, some streaking. but I'm pretty confident that with this next layer, just paying good attention to it and trying to get an even coating, that will have a nice finish on it. You can see it's got a good shine on it. You know, it's hard to say compared to the inside how it looks. I mean, I would think that if you had new leather seats from factory that they would have a little bit of a shine to them. So looks really good so far. Like I said, let's go ahead now and do our second layer, and then we'll move on to doing the smaller pieces. All right, so now all the small bits have been done, and I did 2 layers, actually like 3 on the bigger bolsters here, just because I really want to get a good smooth finish, and I think that I am really happy with how they came out. So what we're going to do now is move on to these pieces here. These are the plastic trim bits that we took off, and we're just going to bring them outside really quick and spray paint them black so that they'll be matching. As a side note, I did use the sponge on the black pieces that were stuck on, and honestly it came out pretty good. You really can't tell that it was gray before, you know, in the middle, yes, but once the headrest goes in, you won't be able to see that part. And the sponge with the dye, it's really good at soaking into the corners, so it did a really great job of covering these trim pieces. But now we're just going to finish up the last ones by hand. Well, that's it. We've got the trim pieces drying up here and the seats looking really good. And I have to say it dried out really evenly, guys. It's looking really, really good. I hope it shows on camera as well. So I'm going to go ahead and start reassembling the seats into the car very, very carefully. I think I'll put the seats in and then put the carpet backing on, and then we'll worry about all these other pieces and the trim and stuff like that. But I really want to get an overall look. And you know what? We'll save the front seats for another episode. Let's call it like a part 2, because I'm sure that we're going to be doing a little bit of repairs on them, and that's going to be a whole nother story. But at least we know that the rear is going to look really nice, and when we do the fronts, they're also going to look matching black. So let's go ahead now and put the seats back in the car. So there we are. Everything is installed in the back of the car here. I have to say it looks really, really good. It's got a touch more gloss than the leather on the front seats, but that's to be expected. I haven't reconditioned these seats in a while, and I don't think they've ever been, you know, restored. They keep on soaking in more reconditioner every time I apply it, so I'm assuming that that's not the correct color for these seats. I would think that maybe they're supposed to have more of a deep black with a gloss like these. So hopefully we'll do those in the future. For now though, we're gonna let these kind of cure. It takes about 6 to 12 hours to fully dry. Right now, you know, it still feels maybe a little sticky, but sitting in the car perfectly comfortable. Doesn't feel like it's gonna rub off or stick to your clothes or anything like that. So I'm really happy with the overall look. There might be a couple spots I would love to touch up, but I think we're gonna wait for everything to dry first. Honestly, there's really great coverage everywhere, and I'm happy that we were able to take all the seats out in order to do this procedure. The trim pieces look really good as well. You can see them for the handles, the hinges and stuff. And also I got a really good look with the carpet installed on the rear, really sharp. Looks like the leather wraps under the carpet and you've got a nice sharp line of distinction between the gray and the black. So that came out great as well. Makes the rear of the car, you know, which is still gray, kind of seem OEM, I guess, as if the car was two-tone. But I don't think that ever came from factory. But look at that, black seats with black door panels, looks really good. Door panels probably could use some reconditioning, and that leather filler would probably come in clutch in some of these spots. So definitely we'll have to do a part 2 with more leather work on this car, but for now I think I'm really happy with the overall look. So that's going to conclude our video for today, and I hope that you guys enjoyed watching. As you saw, the seats look incredible. I think that they look even better than the rest of the interior, but that's because the rest of the interior has never been conditioned or really taken care of. So we're probably going to follow up by doing the front seats as well as fixing some of the spots on the door panels. So definitely let me know with a like or a comment down below if you want to see a fully detailed part 2, and that way we'll show you the full result of an interior restoration on a budget. So anyways, subscribe to the channel if you're new and you haven't yet. And as always, I hope everyone has an amazing day. We will see you next time.